Welcome to the Successful Life Podcast. I am your host, Corey Barrier, and I am here with Autumn, like the season, and Nicholas, like Santa. So, welcome, Autumn.
Hi. You
I,
nailed it.
I screw up everybody's last name, but the way you described that was absolutely perfect. And it's interesting
Good.
because I have my wife. My wife, everybody knows his name, Autumn. So I almost sent you a message earlier when I meant to send it to her, knowing it, and her name's not even Autumn in my phone, but I guess
That's funny.
by association.
Yeah.
So, all right, Autumn. So let's start by just oh my God, this girl has been through hell the last 3 or 4 days trying to get. How long were you stuck between your first plane and by the time you got to actually where you planned on getting to?
Um, I left my house at 2:30 in the morning, and I did not get to my destination until the next day at 10 p.m. So I did one flight, and after that one flight, I was in Philadelphia the entire time until they were like, "Well, let's get you on another flight, and then another, and another." And so I was actually there in the airport, stuck with my dog. And we paced in the airport. It's gotten a lot of trouble.
I
Uh,
don't think I would. I don't know what I would do if I were stuck in the airport with either of the three of my dogs. To be honest with you, that would be a complete disaster.
he's not so bad.
Yeah,
He's like 25 pounds though, so he's
yeah,
pretty easy.
yeah. So Autumn, tell me more about yourself.
So I'm born and raised from Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I implanted myself into the capital in Raleigh about 4 years ago. I come from a military background. My dad was in the military, and I guess we ended up in North Carolina, and I was kind of born there. And come to find out this past year, my dad was not there for my birth, and I thought it was just a funny thing, just because my dad's brother looks just like him, and my mom said he was there, so you would have known the difference. And I remember thinking of now, I'm just like, you're right. I probably wouldn't know the difference now because I wasn't totally there, but I was implanted there, I guess.
So did
And
you move around a lot?
my dad actually did. He let us kind of be permanent so we could have some stability. Mom stayed with us a lot. So whenever he would go to other places, he would go to Korea. You name it, he's kind of been there. And we would stay put just because he wanted some consistency for us, my brother and I, my older brother.
Very cool. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I just thought I'd ask because a lot of
Yeah.
military people move around so many places.
Yeah, part of me wishes that we did, but also I think the other half of me, I think I learned a lot more about. I would say that I didn't like school. I learned a lot more about myself being in one place, for sure.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So go ahead.
So after moving there, I spent a few years going to school. I had a really tough time in elementary school. I think that I was too much of a social butterfly, is what my mom nicely put it as. And I probably was just ADHD to the core, but I always wanted to speak, and I always had something to say, and the teachers really didn't like that. Got in a lot of trouble, like I would say like pretty average trouble. I would bring things to school that would distract me and distract others, and it just became like this habit of like, all right, Autumn, you need to go home and like focus on your school and you. And so my mom said, fine, let's do homeschooling. And I was like, I think I was in fourth grade, and of course to me that was like I automatically was categorizing myself. I'm going to be a nerd. I'm not going to have any social activity, and I'll never be able to play sports. My brother played basketball growing up, so I was like, I got to follow in his footsteps, and being homeschooled is not going to work. But I actually was homeschooled from fourth grade up until I graduated, and I played basketball for like rec teams, and I went on to actually have a scholarship to Chapel Hill, and I ended up getting hurt, and that was no go. And during the time when I was 16 or 17, I was still doing music and basketball, but I never really chose one over the other. I didn't know the destiny. I always thought I was supposed to be a basketball player just because my brother was.
Well,
And
just so everybody knows that's listening, it's not, first of
mhm.
all, it's just, you got to be fairly smart, not fairly, you have to be smart to get into Chapel Hill to begin with. But to get a scholarship to go to Chapel Hill, that's pretty big. I mean, it's not, dude, look, and I'm a Carolina fan, but it may not be quite the equivalent of getting into Duke, but it is really motherfucking close. So,
Well, yeah, and just to clarify, because I know people will watch this, I wanted to go to Duke. It was always a dream to go there, but we had some people that came to some games and they were like, here's this opportunity of a lifetime. And again, schooling was not my favorite thing, and I was truly not the best in everything that I could have been. I'm sure there was a lot of cheating that happened back then because I was by home by myself. So there was definitely a wiggled way of getting in, but it was just this opportunity that, came to be. And quite literally, the day that we got that opportunity, it was the day that I actually got hurt. So it wasn't even this paperwork was filed and this was happening. They were like, you know what, we want to go ahead and do this. Let's move forward. And then quite literally at that game, that is when I was injured.
oh, and what
And
was the
the injury was in my knee. We had it was they claimed it to be I needed knee surgery and torn, things like that, and that was not just it. I actually dislocated my hip, and when I went to the hospital, it was actually when they try to push it back in, a dislocation, it can actually do more damage depending on how it was treated. And I now have hips that sit like this, and I now have scoliosis from this
Oh
because of
my
the way that
gosh.
yeah, it's crazy. But I think it was like kind of a way of life halting me and being like, nope, not your path. Whether it was a painful halt or genuinely someone just saying like, this isn't it. And maybe it was Chapel Hill. I don't know.
Well, if you're anything like
Uh,
me, I have to have a great deal of pain before I see the right direction, or at least for many years that was the case. And still to this day, for
yeah,
some things, that's the case. But I have
yeah,
learned to understand that pain is an indicator, period. And it may
yeah,
indicate
yeah,
that, if it's your knee hurting, it may indicate that something's wrong with your hip. Or if it's a
yeah.
pain in life, it could indicate that you're on the wrong path, you
Yeah,
know?
I think the stop signs that our faces run into sometimes like, oh, that's nothing. That's not a big deal. We can keep going. We just
Right.
kind of avoid the inevitable. But I agree. I continued on with music after that, and I from about 15, I really truly played on stage. My dad shoved me on a stage, and I was whoa. And after the scholarship thing kind of fell through, and I was still trying to decide like, hey, do I really want to go to school? Do I want to go to college? Because it was a disappointment that I wasn't going for the reason why I thought I was supposed to, or do I want to go to college for music? And I took some time off, and I just kept pushing at saying, let's try this music thing out. And luckily, I've had two amazing parents who were like, all right, well, let's try it. Let's try the one path that my mom to this day says, you're choosing a job that's harder than becoming a surgeon. And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, there's no book made for the job that you're going to do. She says, there's no road that says how to become famous or how to become a well-known singer. She goes, there isn't a book or a school that can teach you that. So she would say, good luck. And I didn't really take it such positive words, but at the same time, I think now it's just like, well, I think she was just giving me a dose of the medicine that I'm now like at 30 years old, like, holy, she was right. But I'm super, I would say, blessed and thankful that they let me be who I wanted to be in that like pivotal point of like the molding of who I am. And we went on, and I became my own booking agent. For a long time, I have secretly been, this is now the secret's out, I've been my own assistant. So whenever I would send emails in the past, I would assign a different name to it saying that I was my own agent. So Nicole has
That's
been used for many
smart.
years.
That was
Yeah,
smart. I think that was super
I,
smart.
I had to do it. People didn't believe a little kid, little North Carolina girl that wanted to come and play a show in New York, and they're like, well, who are you working with? I'm like, Nicole's my agent. This is her. So
That's amazing. As I
Hmm.
mean, maybe some people may think it's dishonest. I think it's pretty clever, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it was always the truth. It was just a different name that helped people take it a little more seriously. I mean, to be honest with you, even this past year, I always thought, you have to have a piece of paper hanging on the wall that says you've done something with your life. And
Mm.
that has been really hard to step away from as I'm getting older and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I don't have a 401k. I don't have a dental plan. I don't have healthcare. I'm like, oh my God. And thinking that I have to have those things in order to be respected or have a job that says, hey, I have this badge. As being in the military, I wear this badge, and this is how I'm viewed and my worth is viewed. And I'm like, gosh, if I could carry around the years of bookings and the years of, stages and things that I've done, I think I would have something there, but
Oh,
I don't have a way of proving it.
you do have that. You just don't see that. So
Mm.
this is pretty remarkable that you bring that up, because the girl before you I talked to earlier today, she said we were talking about the Tony Robbins event and limited beliefs, and that she said, so what was yours going into that event? And I said, well, one of them, and it kind of stumped me for a second because I hadn't thought about it in a while. And I said, well, one of them is that I didn't finish college. And
Mhm.
and I really couldn't think of the other one, but I told her, I said, I always know that I have a bigger purpose. I know I have a way to impact a shitload more people than I do. I just don't know. I'm starting to see the how, but
Mhm.
I haven't been able to see it until recently. And so, to your
Mhm.
point about the college degree, I for years carried around the fact that I didn't have a college degree. On top of
Mhm.
that, am a convicted felon. So I got caught with cocaine in 2005, and
Wow.
those two kicks your ass right off an application anywhere. So
Yeah.
so like I had no choice but to become an entrepreneur, because I can't get a job anywhere. And quite frankly,
Right.
I wouldn't want it any other way. I've always wanted to work for myself. I didn't realize how
Right.
hard it was, but
Yeah.
it's a lot harder than people think. But I've
Mhm.
had I've had to let go of that stuff and say, you know what? None of that shit matters. And guess what? Autumn asked me the other day. She said, "What would you? Is there anything that you would change 5 years ago?" Well, I think I always mess up the question, or maybe she no. She said, "Is there anything that you wouldn't change?" And I said, "Well, I guess we'd be getting married to you." And she said, "What about 10 years ago?" And I said, "Getting sober." And she said, "Well, what about 15 years ago?" And I said, "Honestly, getting caught with cocaine. I wouldn't change it, because if I had not gotten caught with cocaine in 2005, I may be dead or strung out in a crack house right now. Who knows? Probably dead, most likely. But so it's things like that that happen in our life that at the time it seems like the end of the world. And
Mhm.
the reality is, it's a defining moment that makes you who you are in the future. It's just hard to see that at the time. So I didn't mean to go off on that rant, but it was just,
No, no.
go ahead.
It, that point of view, and also like even you saying someone in a different place and a totally different story than mine, saying that I don't need that degree, and I'm not using that as, and I'm not saying people use it, but as something to help maybe the next steps of your career or your future. And um, as a 30-year-old female, I think the way that I have felt the world has pressed on me has been over time. Skipping forward a little bit, I've still been a pusher of my career. I grind for every single show I have. I think people just think these shows just kind of pop up, but it's truly like taking a calendar for the next 6 months of your life and saying, I need this to survive. And in order to do that, I need to fill these dates. And a lot of people do this, but I think the people that don't do it don't actually get to see those little small details of the 27 emails it took to get this one show, or things like that. When I fast forward to actually about a year ago, I was in a business with two other business partners. It was a yoga, music, and dance studio. And we had started this on this belief of, this has never been done before. Let's try it. It is a really cool 3 dimensions that makes up a really strong like triangle. So let's do this. And as I'm involved in it, I'm spending more and more time devoted to something else, not my passion. And I watched myself slowly deteriorate. In just a year's time, I couldn't recognize myself in the mirror because I couldn't see what happy reflected to being like. I only saw what I needed to do. And I knew that I needed to make money. I needed to be respected in this field, and I needed to be there and support it. And trying to step down from that position in my brain was so hard because I thought in order to get respect, I had to be doing that. And I had to be viewed as someone who had something. So if I didn't have a plaque, but I had a business, then I was someone. I wasn't just someone who went every, weekend night and sang and, sang to the drunk people. And that was even like saying that. I don't mean that everyone who comes there is drunk. I'm saying that made me feel important, feeling like I had a plaque to stand in front of. And stepping down from that because I knew that I had to give my passion and my music 100% of me was probably, like you said, a moment that I would not change, but it was the hardest change I probably have had to make. It was letting fully go of my past. And to say that that was the only business I've started, no, I've had 4 businesses in my life. And all of them they weren't bad ideas at the time, but they were bad ideas for me. They weren't my future. I was starting someone else's future. And I have been a fixer my whole life. My dad is the type of person who he'll come to your house and fix and paint your kitchen, and then ours looks like a disaster. And that's how I've been raised. And our hands are able. And if they're able, we need to use them for good. And that's how I was taught from my dad. And he to this day is, 70s and above, and he's still out there using his hands and for others. And I had to take myself and use my hands and like stop myself. And I'm like, Dad, we have to be able to love ourselves and say, hey, what do you really want? Do you want the plaque? Do you want the business? Or do you want what makes you happy? And I'm choosing not to have the 401k, and I'm choosing not to have the dental care because I know I'm going to get it myself. I know it now.
For sure.
So.
And, look, at the end of the day, even a 4-year degree, what can you really do with, and I'm not knocking people, like you said, I'm not knocking people with a 4-year degree, but like, what the fuck are you going to do with it? Because you have to have a master's pretty much to get into a good position. And when I say a good position, meaning a position that's going to start you out at $50,000 or $60,000 a year, I would say that's
to pay back.
Mediocre, right? To pay back. Shit, yes.
It's quite literally like it's either you pay the due of going to school and you get a piece of paper, or you physically get to pay the due of being an entrepreneur. That the dues look a little bit different than cash, but man, it still has the effect of money. And I've watched Ed Mylett before, and my biggest thing is time or money. And I'm just like, ugh. I always choose time. It is always about time, and I know I have to grind to get to where I need to be in money and in time, and I will have those balanced soon. And I can just feel it.
Well, being an entrepreneur, and the fact is that you have to be a particular person to be an entrepreneur. You have to be able to understand that there are going to be long days, and there are going to be days when you're sick and you still need to go and do your job. There are going to be days that it's going to really suck. And there's also going to be days where, or not just days, there's going to be lots of times that you have to choose between your business or career, or you have to choose between your husband or your wife or your kids or whatever the case is. I mean, somebody or something is going to suffer.
Yeah, we were breaking up there for just a second.
Is it still breaking up?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can
we're
hear
better
you.
now. Okay.
So I was just saying that, as an entrepreneur, something is always going to suffer, whether that be, your partner or your wife or your husband or your kids or your,
Mhm.
your room is dirty because you just don't have time to clean it, or my office stays,
Mhm.
a wreck because I'm in it all
Yeah.
the time, you know?
Mhm.
And I can't remember who pointed that out, but they said something is always going, you have, I do know who it was, the guy, Tim Grover. Do you know who that is?
Not by name, but probably if I saw a photo for sure.
He coached Michael Jordan as his personal coach for 15 years,
Oh,
and
okay.
Kobe, and like he's a hard ass. He's got
Wow.
his book is called Relentless. You definitely need to either listen to it or read it. It's
Absolutely.
amazing. In fact, if you have Audible, I can send you.
I do.
Yes, I'll send it to you on Audible, or I'll send you a screenshot of it or whatever. But it's good.
Awesome. Thank you.
It's good. But he
Ah,
said, something always suffers. Anyway, go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
that's it's no, no, you're okay. You're absolutely right. Something does always suffer. And I wrote something down yesterday. I was listening to a conversation and somebody was saying, gosh, I feel like there's always something to matter. And I was like, I wonder if that's true, if there is always something to matter, or do we ever find ourselves in a place where we're like, life is good, but is that just momentary? Is it just like a little, kind of like a picture, you can capture it and it's like in that moment you remember how you felt. But when there's things that matter, or when there's things, out of order, like the office, I'm in a disorderly space, but for right now what you're seeing is the order of which I'm speaking to you, and it feels like it's put together. I wondered if there would ever be a time in my life where that would just, you'd find that equal balance and you could have order and you could have everything that you needed. But I don't think so. I think we have to continually keep learning and continue to keep rearranging and organizing our lives as much as we do as people, even to the things and objects around us. And I'm only 30, so I got some ways to go, but so far I'm continuously playing Jenga and Tetris with my life.
Well, okay, so I'll give you a great example that Jarek Robbins used. He said, you know, he said, for a week, try to brush your teeth with the opposite hand. All right, so think about that. Unless you're whatever it's called that you can do shit with both hands.
Ambidextrous.
Yes. Uh,
Ambidextrous, yeah.
unless you're that, then just try it for 5 to 7 days, and you'll see this is the reason behind it. Okay, it sounds like something simple, but the whole
Okay.
reason behind it is that you don't create new neural pathways in your brain by doing the same shit over and over, the same
Yeah.
exact way. Now, Dr. Joe Dispenza also talks about the same thing. And
Right.
if because he talks about when you wake up on the same side of the bed, you
Hmm.
turn the alarm off with the same hand, you get up, you go to the bathroom, or you get up and you do this, and it's the same damn sequence every
Habitual.
single day. So
Hmm.
it's your own autopilot. So to further what you were saying about, I wonder if we're ever in a place of peace, or you really shouldn't be. You really should be in a
Right.
place where you're mixing things up, like you said,
Uh-huh.
because it
That's
fires different parts of your brain. And if you don't
right.
fire those parts, you won't grow.
That that's exactly why I think when people find, I'm gonna say chapters are people in your life. So this chapter came into my life, he or she, and they fired something in my life that I need to see or recognize out of the habit, like you're saying, of myself. And I believe that the people we come across create those moments where, like you said, we're either destined to, if you would have never been, stopped for that to happen in your life, and for whatever reason, whoever like turned you on to maybe where you were, or maybe a situation in your life stemmed from someone else. It all boils down to that moment. And I feel like that is why we have so many different, not so much soulmates, but I think chapter mates that go in and out of our lives and in and out of our stories. So like you said, to continue that growth, because if not, I would be a stagnant, like, ugh, like if you just shrivel up and be the same like habitual thing. And I definitely don't want that, and I think that's why I took so many paths in businesses, thinking that, I need to be this because the world says. But then when I was in it, I was like, "Oh, this is a really horrible idea. Like, maybe this isn't for me." And I truly kept steering off of my actual path. And I think I had to give into the fact of being an entrepreneur means you have to pick up the paver, and whether that's a shovel or whatever you have at the time, and truly start laying your own road. I think I was afraid to do that because my dad had taught me that it is easier to help others. And maybe that was a good or a bad, but I think I had to learn that on my own. And though, again, I think helping others is wonderful, but when you choose to say, this is what I'm going to do because I believe what I will do will help others. And like you were saying, like, I believe I'm made for something bigger. There's something there, like greater for me. And you can't really describe that in words always. I've always told my mom, I said, I'm destined to be in front of people. And I can't get out of that, whether that's in a light, whether that's speaking one-on-one. And I've never had the gift of gab until I feel like I came to settle with myself, to actually deal with myself. And then I was able to talk about it, when singing was just kind of an excuse not to be able to tell my story. So this is one of my first times I've ever actually talked about me without having to be fully committed to, well, I'm a good singer, you know what I mean? It's not about that. So
I can
I really,
attest to that because I've heard you. So, and I got trampled by all the people that I would say that most of them were drunk. I don't know for sure, but
see,
they were like, and I said to myself, I was like, but keep in mind, I'm also sober 10 years. So my tolerance
right.
for people that are intoxicated is about that much.
Yeah, yeah.
So I told Autumn after the fact, I was like, man, this girl, like, she was behind me and just talking about fucking nothing. And I'm like, it was the most, I wanted to rip my eyeballs out
Mm-hmm,
because she just kept talking about absolutely nothing. And
mm-hmm,
I wouldn't want to be in that life anymore. Meaning
right,
as the person drinking. And I'm
right.
not knocking anybody that drinks. I don't care if anybody
No,
drinks,
yeah.
but
Mm-hmm,
I don't have to put up with people if they're too intoxicated. It's just not my gig
right,
anymore.
right.
I don't have to do it. I'm not going to.
Mm-hmm,
Well, I'm sure there will be times in my life that I will have to, but you get what I'm saying. And
right,
you, by you doing what you do and singing, you touch people's lives that you don't even know about in
right.
ways they're not even aware of, maybe.
Mm-hmm. That exact show, I believe you two had just left. To be honest with you, right before the mayhem came in, we were at max capacity 20 minutes after you had left. And, they're to the front of the stage, and I'm like, hey, you guys, I'm going to take a quick break. And I step down, and I'm saying hi to a familiar face I haven't seen in like 4 or 5 years. And this girl comes up, and she interrupts the conversation, but she does it with like, I can feel her wanting to say something. And I'm like, all right, well, I should just turn and like let her be engaged with me. She says, I was listening to your feed the other day, and you had said something about, that we all share a common ground of feeling lonely, feeling insecure, and, talking about those things. And she goes, it was so, it was so almost unreal feeling like I could be someone like you. In my mind, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, that's so weird. I consider myself to be equal. There's no stage that puts me any higher than any human can ever reach. I don't feel the lights making me like this glow, like I'm not this weird alien on stage. I am very much alive and human and emotional. And hearing someone say that, like that they engaged with words and feelings and emotions with you, like you said, you have no idea who's there. So when I bracket it as saying like drunk people come to my shows, I can't exactly do that every time because there are people, there's one person guaranteed that needed that or connected with me. And that is where I'm at in my career, of making that like another pivot to turn me, that says it's time for the bigger, it's time for your picture now, it's time for your words. And I had left that show, and I went on to play another show that evening. It was a listening lounge show. It's called So Far Raleigh, and it's where people come to an intimate space and they're quiet to listen to your original music. And how that lady affected me there, it truly made me go back on stage and say, I I am here to perfect my craft, no matter who I'm performing for, and no matter what perception I put on it. I have to come in here and say, I'm doing this because I love it, and I'm going to spread it to those who need it. And that that give and take of that energy sometimes is draining, but at the same time, it is so fulfilling to say something or do something that where you feel it good for you and you can actually feel that connection with someone else. And then going to another show where it's completely silent, everyone is engaged, and having that same type of reaction. Another woman approaches and says, you touch my guts. And I know that's such a strange to say, but when a song reaches you, it reaches deep inside, and it has a definition and a meaning for you that maybe the reason I wrote the song is totally different than how you feel right now. But to me, music has become a medication that I am allowed to prescribe for people, and they are allowed to overdose, and it is okay.
Wow,
And
I like that. That was really good.
thank you.
That was a really good way of saying that. You know, so you said something, and I was going to circle back to it. And so you said that you've never really told your story before.
Hmm.
Why is that?
To be quite honest, I have auditioned for a lot of the television shows that people see on TV that are very common, and they want a story. And I don't have the most dramatic story to tell. I mean, my story has moments that have drama, but is it one that may be worth ratings for a TV show? That's not my opinion to say it is or it isn't. They make money on it, they know what to do. But I've told my story in so many different ways and in so many different lights that I almost get like mixed up on what and who I am. And most recently, another television show came, into the picture, and I was like, I'm gonna give this my best me shot. And instead of, kind of like pitching a light on just something significant, I pitched a light on everything that is true about myself and the struggle of my life, and whether that be on a scale of whatever it may be measured, it's the honest truth. And I'm realizing that my story is enough. Over the years, I felt like it wasn't enough. I felt like maybe if I lost my foot in a random scooter accident, they would consider me to be talented. Is that what it takes to be talented? In my opinion, no. But do I believe that's what makes ratings on TV? I'm sure it does. And that industry is a bit of a fiery one for me, but I truly know what it takes to kind of mold to their wantings. But now being able to say, you know what, I'm going to be who I am. And if that's not enough for someone or something, then that means that that path isn't ready. I'm not meant to merge with it, and that's okay. And whereas, when I was 18 years old auditioning for a television show and they're telling you like, well, we like your sound, but your story's kind of boring. And you're like, what? I think that's more devastating than saying your talent is enough. We'll take you.
So, okay? So this is what I find interesting. That you said that you've told your story several different ways to several different TV shows. Let's just say that.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't interesting enough. There's got to be a particular time when you about that that whoever said that, is that one
Mm-hmm.
person or is that multiple people that sticks out in
Um,
your head?
I would say that there was one instant that I was just like, all right.
And so, what
It
was the
was
story?
um, the one that we pitched was um, that I had a really hard time growing up as a mixed child. It is a valid story. Did we add a little extra to it to make it seem a little more for the filming? Yes. But it was the truth, absolutely. Uh, but the way that it was broken down, that he said no to me moving forward, was he says to me, and I remember having to stand on this X, and standing on an X makes me nervous because that means they don't want you to move. And I feel like music is meant to move. I mean, whether I'm moving you here, whether I'm actually physically moving your body, they're like, don't come off the X. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really hard for me. My body naturally does something when I'm engaged. And I felt myself stiffen up. And I'm like, oh man, I'm not engaged here. So it's not gonna show who I am. And you got 3 minutes to pull off talent. And in that 3 minutes, they're reading your bio. They're reading everything that you've written down and pitched to them. And now they're like asking you questions about your life. Well, why was it hard being mixed? Well, I still am mixed. And I would say, sarcastic things like that because that's who I am. And they would ask, obvious questions like, how long have you been playing? And I'm like, like more than 15 years, et cetera, however many years at the time. And they're like, well, we can tell that you're seasoned. But what about your dad? Your dad was in the military. Did anything happen? And it was always like more and more and more. And I'm like, but did you hear the song that I played? And it was never about that. And it was always something left field. And when the story of my emotions, as far as when I was like 8 years old, I wasn't allowed to go play at a kid's house because I was mixed. And I remember going over there really excited to go play on a trampoline. And I went and knocked on the door, and the mom answered the door. She goes, "You're not allowed to play. You're a mutt." And I was like, "Oh, what?" And I'm 8 years old, so I don't know what the heck that means. My parents have never raised us one way or the other. I mean, my father is Pacific Islander, so he has dark skin. My mom is just she's from Wisconsin, and that's what she is, like through and through. She's Irish. That's it. Nothing much else. And so it makes the two of us, and that's what we get. And we get a little salt and pepper. And at the time, I didn't know what that meant. And so I went back home and I said, "Hey, mom, like, what does this mean? And why can't I go play? I don't understand it." Lord knows she went over there with a lot of words, and I had to stand back and kind of just watch at a distance. And eventually, I was allowed to go play. And the scenario of what actually happened, my friend's mom and dad ended up splitting up after that scenario. And from that point on, I was always allowed to go over and play. And then as I got older, I understood more and more of what that meant. And I saw some of the little things that were harder in my life, maybe from that, but it was never enough to stop me. I never took that amount of time to think that there needs to be that much segregation because of what I look like, because if blind people can't tell the difference, and what the hell is the difference for me? Like, I'm going to love and be and treat people how they deserve to be treated, and how I would expect someone to do unto others things. I think doesn't really stand true in every scenario, but I try to make sure that happens. And in that scenario with that audition, I thought that that was something that was pivotal in my life, and also to be honest, in the world, we still have a lot of that problem going on, and it wasn't enough. And I think going home each time with a different story, that story specifically, I honestly gave up the fact of saying, television stardom is going to be my make or break. I went home thinking, you know what, I'm done. I'm done with that. I think it's fair enough to say that I don't have to put myself through that anymore. And then doing it one more time, because my my motto for myself when I stepped down from the business this past year was exhaust every option. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm not giving all and my best. So I did it again, and I told my honest and true story, and here I am. And I can't say anything about it, but
What do you mean? Here you
I
are.
auditioned. I auditioned, and I can't say anything of what happened, but yeah,
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
yeah.
So let me ask you, so as you were telling your as you were just talking and telling me the story, I
Hmm.
wonder if it was the fact that you don't think that your story is that important. I wonder how much that plays a part in how much they feel your story is important. So, for example, if I tell you that, I was a fat kid, but it was a no big deal, and I got made fun of, no big deal. And then I lost weight, and then I went into seventh grade, and blah blah blah. Or if I said to you, when I was in sixth grade, I was at a pool party, and I went up on the diving board, and I jumped up and down, and there was three girls at the end of the pool, and they, after I dove in and got out, they asked me to do it again, and they were laughing, and so I jumped down, and they thought I was cute, but they didn't. They wanted to see my tits bounce up and down and my stomach because I was fat. And from that point on, after I realized that, I was so devastated and embarrassed that I completely went on a diet and started exercising and lost the weight. It's two different ways to look at that story. It's the same fucking story.
Right.
Same story, but it's the details, and it's how you portray how it made you feel at 8 years old when your mom had to tell you, or when you had to go see your mom cuss out the neighbor because of what she had done, he or she, whichever it was, and that had an impact on you, as it would any kid. And so
Right.
I don't, I think that you have an awesome story. I just don't know if you believe you have an awesome story. And I say that in, like, seriously, with all my heart, trying to help, because you do have a really cool ass story. I mean, you've seen things that I'll never get to see. I mean, I have no idea what it's like to play on a stage. I can tell you, as a child, I would have killed to do what you're doing. And I think most people would probably love to perform on a stage in front of people and get paid for it. Like, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Or that, let's just take, for example, you've also been, you've gone on several auditions for television shows. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, that's, I mean, that's not normal. That's pretty fucking cool. So,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe to you it's like no big deal, but really, that's pretty impressive. So you got to give yourself some more credit, because you busted your fucking ass to get where you are, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I would, maybe the next time you tell your story, just be a little bit more enthusiastic, not enthusiastic, a little bit more kind of a punch in the face when you tell the story. You see how I told my story one way, and then I told you the gruesome details about the story, and it made it way worse.
Right.
So,
yeah. With the
you
honesty and the connection.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you know how to tell a story. I know that.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really cool that you can come here to talk about things, and then you can also learn always. I'm open book to learning, and that means a lot to me what you just said. It really truly does. And my year of 30 has truly changed my understanding of my life and truly looking at myself. It has been honestly pretty awful, but at the same time pretty amazing. And to what you're saying, most people don't experience some of the things that I've experienced. You're absolutely, that's true and valid. And I think soaking that all in this last year has been something like, so when I'm saying that those moments when I connected with that one person and also connecting with you, and to be quite honest with you, when Autumn came up to me at the show, I hadn't tied you to her yet. My mind knew you and I knew her. But then when I tied the two, I was like, oh my gosh, like, oh my God, like I'm sitting here watching her stories. I'm sitting here like, you won't believe it. I'm showing my partner, I'm like, you won't believe what he's talking about. And I'm just like, wow, this is a crazy, the degree of separation that was there was like inches away. And I told my partner today, I said, you have no idea how excited I am to be doing this. Like, someone asked to speak to me about me and not just about, like, oh, you sound really nice. It was different. And I told her, I was like, she was very nervous. I was like, you know what? I don't want to be nervous. I just want to be myself, because if I forget about that, then then the nervous will come in and I'll lose parts of myself in the nervous. So what you just said really means a lot. It
Well,
really does.
it's interesting, because when she told me that you knew me not through her, it
Yeah.
was the same feeling. I was like, that, gosh, really? I was like, that, I didn't even know how to take it, because I don't know if anybody's ever said that before. It was just an odd, like you said, it was just a surreal feeling. And,
Mm-hmm.
and so I don't know where I was going with it, but the feelings are mutual. I felt the exact same kind of like, wow, like she knows who I am outside of you, which is our mutual
Mm-hmm.
connection anyway. So, what is it like performing in front of people, like in front of people that, like the television people? Like, that's pretty cool, I would imagine, just to even be able to get to do that.
Um, to be honest with you, it is almost kind of like applying for a job. You're nervous and you're in great hopes that something positive comes from it. And so when you go to do that, you're turning in a resume of maybe not the marks of what you've done through schooling, but um, the experiences that you can, like you said, encompass in whatever story you can get to be the most effective story to reach them that they think will be worth pursuing. So if your story is worth it, then your sound will be worth it after that. And so the steps it takes to getting there is a lot more than what people see. And I don't ever want to ruin it for anyone, but it is it's a very stressful process. My mom has even stopped going with me to auditions because she gets so overwhelmed knowing that she's like, you're putting yourself out there for everything and you do it every time as if it's just like, okay, let's just do this. Whereas when she says when she goes with me, she feels that maybe I'll pick up some of her nervous energy, or maybe I'll pick up some of how she feels and take it in. But truly, when a parent comes with me and my family comes with me, I feel more weight than I do stress. It's more of a, I don't want to let them down because we're all going in this together. And I think that's been the hardest. That's probably my hardest battle for myself, has been saying that, are you doing this for other people, or are you doing this for you truly? And once I decided that it was for me, and my family means so much to me that I want to make it further, so that we can have time. But the audition process is stressful, but also it's under pressure I perform really well. So like maybe consider a bartender. When a lot of people overwhelm him with drinks and they pile up, you can either stumble and drop, or you can take it in, process it, and deliver your best. And after all these years of auditioning, I would say now 10 years of auditioning, I've come to go in and saying, I am who I am. This is my story. My talent is here. My last audition, I went in with pneumonia, and I said, all I can offer is what I have. And in that audition, I never thought once that this pneumonia was going to stop me. Did it? Yes. And did one of the judges say, why are you sweating so much? Are you nervous? There's something wrong? I was like, well, I am excited to be here, but I have 102 fever. And I'm standing here in front of you because I love this shit. And he was like, and I said, I want to be here. My story, I've came to realize who I am. And I said, whatever you're reading on that paper, whatever you take from it, know that I'm going to give it a punch in the face with what I do. And I hope you can gather me in about 3 minutes. And he looked at me and he said, you didn't have to, I did a mashup. And he said, you didn't have to do all that work then. He goes, you could have just straight up told me you had pneumonia. I said, to be honest with you, sir, I've never gone in and just been myself. So for me to say that I have pneumonia is an excuse. And it is, but you still came in here and you gave me the best you could give me. And so every audition process before that was pure T stress. I was absolutely stressed. I thought I wasn't good enough because of my story. And I think it also took over my talent.
So I think that you needed the pneumonia in order to maybe have a story that you could believe.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning like, so the fact that you went in and you performed with pneumonia, it told the judges, whichever it is, them that showed them a side of you that they probably don't see with a lot of people, because most people would have laid in bed or said, I can't come because I have pneumonia. But the fact that you showed up and you didn't announce that you had pneumonia, I think is going to be a pivotal point in your career. I think you're going to look back at that day and realize that God, whatever you believe, put that in your life at that very moment for a reason. Watch and see.
I believe that 100%. I walked out still not clear of what the hell was going to happen next, but it has changed dramatically what has happened next. But I walked out and my partner's in the car, and I remember getting in and She didn't ask me a single question. She just looked at me, and I was like, and everyone I take is ready for the answer. They're like, yes, no, yes, no. And that is like the most like, bleh. Like, here's the answer, no. But the answer not being clear, and also the answer being absolutely clear for being myself and doing exactly what I feel like I was able and to be quite honest, like had in me to do. Whatever I had, I left it in there. And I sound like you said, like going through puberty voice when I was walking out, but I left it all in there. And it felt really good being myself on the paper and as the person. And whether I had a fever, it was still all honest. And I think the answer was for me. It wasn't actually for the success of maybe that relationship with that television show moving forward. It was for me. And so to say that maybe my story of jumping on the diving board can be expressed in a different way, I agree with that. I have to continually see myself as myself. So the artist that's on stage is still the woman that I am when I step down.
So you say the answer was unclear. Do you mean they didn't give you an answer?
Um,
Or is that also something you can't say?
yeah, I can't answer that, but
Got it.
the answer that I was given has pivoted me to the direction I'm going now in my career, not just in television. What I mean is stepping into that situation has allowed me to say, I'm ready to start speaking my own words. So I've sang so many covers. I can't even tell you how many cover songs I've sang in the last 15 years. And maybe 5% of that has been my own original music. And that is really shitty. And I've came into my own voice and in my own words. So coming here in the next few months, I'm going to actually be taking time off from singing in bars to pursue a full-time writing experience in Nashville. And I'll be moving there in March. And that is probably the second most fearful thing I'm doing, because I'm giving up what I know best and I know how to perform. And what you're saying of taking stage, what is that like? It is gratifying to a degree that you cannot lose yourself up there. You can get lost in the mayhem, in the lights. You really can. You can think that this is, as a cover artist, getting lost in that is so easy. You can book tours, God, all over the world, singing cover songs and like making people, being a human jukebox is what I call myself sometimes. I got lost in that for 10 years. I think I lost my story in there too. And I think I'm coming back to it now and taking that time off. It will be terrifying, but I think it will be the most gratifying. My pneumonia story has changed that.
So when you say you're going to take say it again, you're doing a writing what?
I guess somebody with like a sabbatical. I am removing myself from being a cover artist, meaning I'm no longer going to play in a bar.
Okay, and so you're going to
I'm going.
perform your own stuff.
Yes, I'm actually right now building a music content file. So that means every song I can possibly write, I'm doing that and putting it into a file and taking it with me. And we're pitching it to different people, different ideas, different projects. And I'm solely dedicating that time there to going to songwriters rounds, to open mics just for my music, even if that means I have no money. And it will mean that. And I am going to be producing a video on this. I'm going to be keeping everybody updated through the entire journey, because as a female, this is from my own experience. I've watched males all over travel by themselves and do their careers in music. And for a female, I feel like it's a bit different. There's a little more fears and a little more dangers that maybe we face. Maybe that's just my assumption, but actually honestly going on the road and saying, I'm going to move somewhere by myself and I'm going to follow my solo career as an artist is a bit terrifying. But I feel like if I don't do it now, I'll never commit to doing it.
I think that makes complete sense, and I agree. If you feel like that's the right thing to do in March, or right now that you're in preparation of getting ready for March, then that is what you
Mm-hmm.
should do. And
Mm-hmm.
and there may be some tough times, but I want to circle back
Oh,
around
yeah.
to you saying about the women. So I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember what the percentage is, but I think it's 6% of
Mm,
speakers, like, speakers that we would go, Ed Milet's, whoever,
mhm, mhm,
6% are women. 6.
mhm.
That is a unbelievably low number.
Yes.
So it probably is more challenging for you as a woman, to be honest with
Mhm.
you. I mean, based on just that statistic alone,
Yeah.
that was mind blowing to me. So
I didn't even know that, but I believe that.
it's crazy.
And I don't think it's so much of my own fear. I think it's because of the unknown fears that maybe we have or that we present ourselves with. But I can't live with that anymore. I can't let that be my like be all end all. Like that just it drives me mentally crazy. And I think that may even have something to tie into maybe me as a woman being gay, to be honest with you. Being able to protect myself in a shell that maybe feels more masculine, to be the exterior taken seriously, and to be even um, to be looked at with maybe more respect. I think that has been a part of my molding and growth of who I am, and then finding a comfortable state of the woman I am now. I think it's taken all those years of that understanding, but I think that 6%, it sucks to hear that on that side too. But I know that it can change. And I know that I will definitely be adding to the percentage of women going on tour and
So that
trying.
was exactly why I told you, to see if I could get that response. Because I think
Mm,
if I would have told you that at the beginning of our conversation, before we unraveled, the pneumonia story, or the fact that you told the different stories to try to impress the people on that you were trying to get a gig with or be on television with,
mm,
it just wasn't your time yet. And
mm. Yeah,
and
yes.
and now that day with pneumonia, and I don't even know if you're talking about the same thing that you're talking about that you can't talk about. I don't know if that's even, I
Mhm,
don't know if that has anything to do with it or not, but whatever happened that day, it is going to be a defining moment in your life. I promise you, I can feel it in my bones that is, because from now on you can say, I stood in front of whoever the fuck, and I sang my ass off, and the story is, guess what? I'm fucking here. I'm sick as shit, but I'm here. That's all I'm gonna give you. And then yourself. And that in itself is such a big deal. Like, I'm telling you, it doesn't seem like a big deal to you because you did it. Because that's just what the fuck you do.
yeah,
And a lot of people don't look at things like that as anything impressive, because if it's you and that's just what you do, then it's not, doesn't sound so impressive. But look at the
mm,
world around us. People are lazy. People don't give a shit. They just, people want a handout, and you went out and did something that most folks wouldn't do because you want it that bad. And that's why the judge had that uh, response to you when you told them that you were up there with 102 fever.
mm,
I'm so excited to see what's coming for you. And, you know, it may be rough. It may be rough for a little bit longer, but it may not. It may
yeah,
not. You may
yeah,
get to Nashville and completely running just to the right person. Just keep your
right.
eyes open for that right person, because you never
Mhm,
know who that person might be.
right.
Um, you know, dude, we all have self doubt. Every human being walking on this earth, I don't give a shit who you are. And we
Mhm,
all think that at some point in our year, we have doubts about money or about relationships or about if we're doing the right thing, or if we did the right thing, or could we be doing stuff better. And and it's interesting to me when I see people on Instagram and they're always talking about, and look, I'm very guilty for not displaying when there's shit in my life. I am
mm,
horrible about it. I'm being totally honest. I don't, if I'm feeling down, or if I'm feeling depressed, or if I'm feeling like shit's just not moving fast enough,
Yeah.
I don't. I'm trying to get better about talking about it, but I
Hmm.
feel like I shouldn't let that stuff out, because then it dampers my personality. But my thinking is broken. If that's how
Hmm.
I'm thinking, my thinking's fucking wrong. Because
Right.
excuse me, my nose keeps running.
It's
Um,
okay.
so people want to know about the struggle
Hmm. The
with
shit.
the shit. People want to know about the
Hmm.
shit. They really do. They're more
It,
interested in the shit than they are the
mhm.
good stuff.
But it's so true, because if we tie that to how the world has growth, shit creates new life. If compost and literal shit grows beauty and grows nutrition, then why can't we wire the brain to say that
Mm,
crying and complaining don't have to be hand in hand? Just because we're crying doesn't mean we're complaining. Just because we're verbalizing something, it leads us to making connection. That girl who spoke to me in the bar, she said, I didn't know that you felt lonely because we see you in the lights. And I'm like, holy shit, we're making a connection. This is happening. And then that inspired me eh, to want to speak more when I didn't want to speak. It's when you don't want to talk that you should probably be talking. And and today my partner goes to work. She gets in the car and she opens the window and she goes, I am so proud that you're going to sit and talk about yourself, because I think the rest of the world is ready to listen. And I think you are ready to share it. She goes, I've always been proud of it. And I'm like, I didn't understand that. I'm sitting there like, what the hell does that mean? Like, what do you, I know you're proud of me, but sitting here with you, I can feel now what she meant.
yeah, it's sometimes it's really, really hard to talk about ourselves because we feel like it's selfish,
Yep.
or that people don't care enough for us to talk about. For you, I'm guessing that you think people would rather hear your music than hear you just talk about whatever.
Yes.
And maybe it's the opposite. Maybe your whole goal, maybe your whole thing in life is not even to sing. Maybe it's to speak on stage and share,
Yeah.
you
That's
know?
yeah. Yeah. I sat down here and I thought to myself, maybe I should get a book out. Maybe I should write things down. Maybe you should just be yourself. And the first line says, more love for others who maybe don't feel love. Just open your mouth about it. And that makes no sense in like sentence form, but it made sense to me of what I needed to just be myself. More love grows more love. More connection grows more connection. And more honesty, again, creates more honesty. And that's what I'm about. And maybe, like you said, maybe music isn't all. Um, maybe the way I'm viewing the lights are just different shades. And maybe I can do both. I just, I don't think I ever believed in myself enough to think I was able.
Yeah, well, welcome to you and the rest of the world. Because, it may seem like people are so that they're so different, but the reality is that we're all very similar when it comes to that. And some of us exude more confidence than others, but it's just practice.
Mm-hmm.
It's and people definitely want to hear who you are and what you're doing, and they want to know who you are personally, especially you being on a stage. They definitely want to know who you are because they only know the stage.
Right.
And I know that's a hard pill to swallow, but I challenge you to, maybe share something about yourself on social once a week. It doesn't have to be deep, dark, intimate shit. It doesn't have to be that, hey, I whatever the fuck. I can't think. I had my period and it was all over my pants today. It doesn't have to be that, but it can be
Yeah.
something as simple as, what I don't know, whatever.
Relatable.
Yeah,
And just
just you.
honest. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. And the very first thing I ever posted that was personal was about feeling lonely. and about this career being more lonely than what people recognize. And then the responses that came from that was just like, holy shit, like, hi. And I kept telling people, don't be afraid to say hello to me just because you think we're different. And I think people put me in a light, and when they put me there, they forget that I'm a human. And then the people who are too afraid to say hello, I'm like, no, like that, please always say hi. Please, please come in and hug me and let me connect with you.
Then be more relatable.
On it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm super excited to hear about what you have coming up. I'm super excited to hear about how Nashville goes. Nashville is,
Oh yeah.
God, the number one place I think that you could
Yeah.
possibly go to
Mm-hmm.
be discovered or whatever it is you're going out there for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everything is, if you're supposed to be in Nashville in March, you'll show up in Nashville. If you're not supposed to be
Mm-hmm.
there, then God will put you in the direction he wants you to be in. But my
I
guess
absolutely
is,
agree.
after as long as you've been doing this, that you have lined up whatever you've lined up, and Nashville's where you're supposed to be. So there's a reason behind that, and it may not show itself for 6 months after you get there, or it may be 6
Mm-hmm.
days. You never know.
Right. Mm-hmm. I have this. It's in me. Something's telling me to move, not move, maybe like physically, like impermanent, but my body is ready to stand and start walking towards this direction. And I'm gonna have to take, like I said, exhaust every option until we find out what direction that is.
Perfect. Well, where can people find you on social?
It's really simple. You can go to autumnnicholas.com. Autumn Nicholas Instagram, Autumn Nicholas Facebook. Everything is my name to the T. Again, autumn like the season, Nicholas like Santa Claus. It's spelling. And
Perfect.
the story's gonna get interesting soon. So.
Oh, your story's already good, but it's just gonna get better. So,
Yep.
all right.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to circling back around with you
Mhm.
in the next 3 or 4 months to see where you are in your journey. I mean, it'd mean like to have you back on.
Oh, sure. I would love to.
I would
I
love,
would
I
absolutely
would
love to.
love for you to. All right, my friend.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank
Thank
you.
you.
And you have a
You're
wonderful
welcome.
night.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.